All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Doherty. I am the manager of special interest travel here at Thomson Safaris, a long-standing partner with Iowa State University Alumni Association, the Traveling Cyclones. We've been working with Iowa State for as long as I've been with Thomson, probably a bit longer than that. And I'll tell you that these safaris with Iowa State are some of our favorite trips out of the entire year. It's actually uncanny. I think we've never had a single complaint from any of you alums who've traveled on this particular Tanzania safari. And the offering we have for you this year, coming up in February 2023, is a time-tested safari and has been a perfect match for Iowa State travelers. So we're very excited. Without much further ado, let's begin. So the trip we're talking about is the Best of Tanzania Safari, which runs from February 25th to March 8th. That's the estimated door-to-door dates if you're using the recommended flight itinerary on Delta KLM. Before we get started on the safari itinerary, I'll talk to you a little bit about Thomson Safaris. Thomson Safaris was founded in 1981 by Rick and Judy Thomson Wineland. Judy is on the left, Rick Thomson on the right. They came to Tanzania essentially at a time where there was a lot of opportunity to do things a specific way, and from the beginning they decided they wanted to run safaris themselves rather than leaning on third-party vendors. They wanted to do pretty much everything on their own as it relates to the guiding, accommodations, and even cultural experiences and adventure experiences available to you. This is a photo with Rick and Judy negotiating with Jane Goodall about bringing tourism to Gombe Stream, where she was doing research for the chimpanzees. So long-standing relationship in Tanzania. In the early days, we started off doing adventure camping. This is a camp on the crater rim of Ngorongoro. And back in those days, we used to use military-style transport vehicles to bring people around, and everyone pitched their own tent. Everyone pitched into cooking the meals, and it was just a kind of a group effort in that regard. Now these days we've matured quite a bit in terms of how we do these things, and so our vehicles have changed as well. This is our customized Land Rover Defender. This is an 8-seat vehicle. We will maximize the group with 6 guests per vehicle. Everyone gets a guaranteed window seat, custom suspension, increased window height as well, and you can see the pop-top roof. So these are the perfect vehicles to take you across the Serengeti and Ngorongoro ecosystems. And our camping has matured quite a bit as well. We still do the adventure camping from time to time, but we have this new model of camp called a nyumba, which means home in Swahili. And each nyumba is about a 30-foot by 20-foot canvas enclosure with a private bathroom and shower, beautiful beds and linens, everything you need and nothing you don't while you're out in the bush. As you can see here, we have these beautiful beds with high thread count linens. The lighting is solar powered. We're out in the bush, and so we don't want to be running generators all night. We want you to be able to hear the night sounds and everything that nature wants to share with you. And so our lighting and electricity is generally solar powered at camp. Our central lounge tents are the perfect area for you and your group to gather, to share stories, to have a glass of wine or beer leading up to dinner. And the service that we provide is really quite special. I know everybody who works for Thomson in Tanzania. Our camp staff are all on the same payroll as I am. And so we're all on the same team, all with the same vision to make this an amazing safari for you and your group. Life at camp is just totally serene. And these are some of the best people you'll ever meet, the most generous, warm, welcoming, and helpful people to welcome you to Tanzania. And our guides, the best in the business. In Tanzania, there's a lot of competition for the best guides, and so the best companies will attract the best guides. And in this case, Thomson stands at the top of the mountain in that regards. Now, Thomson is also dedicated to a wide range of community and conservation initiatives. We've been working with schools, we've been working with women's groups, focusing on women's health and empowerment, water, and other initiatives as well. So when you're on safari with us, and in regards to the Best of Tanzania Safari, you'll actually get to see some of these projects and meet some of the people who are partnering with us out in the bush. Okay, so let's discuss the highlights of your trip. This safari combines world-class wildlife viewing in the Serengeti and Ngorongoro crater ecosystems with intrepid bushwalks, night drives, and an amazing cultural experience in our Eastern Serengeti Private Nature Refuge. After all that is wrapped up, you'll finish with a farm-to-fork culinary and luxury accommodations experience at the award-winning Gibbs Farm. And of course, our signature guiding and service throughout. So let's have a look at the map. This particular itinerary is what we call a fly out and drive back safari. And actually you can see here in the map, Tanzania is located in East Africa, just south of Kenya, north of Mozambique, and to the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo and other Central East African countries. This area where you'll be spending your time is in northern Tanzania. It's what we call the Northern Tanzanian Safari Circuit, which includes the town of Arusha, Mount Kilimanjaro National Park, Arusha National Park, and the enormous and wild Serengeti and Ngorongoro ecosystem. So as you can see here, coming in from Europe on Delta KLM or some other airline, you'll arrive at Kilimanjaro Airport, spend a night in town with us at the beautiful River Trees Country Inn before flying out by charter plane to Thomson's 10,000-acre Eastern Serengeti Private Nature Refuge. You'll spend a few nights there for your bushwalks, your cultural visits, some night drives, amazing stargazing, and a wonderful camp before heading into the Serengeti. We're going to be spending time in the southern Serengeti at this time of year. In February, it's calving season for over 2 million hoofed animals, and so we want to put you in front of that. There's also a large concentration of big cats and resident wildlife in that area. And then from the Serengeti, you'll travel on through Ngorongoro, stopping at Olduvai Gorge. This is the site where the Leakey family discovered some of our earliest pre-hominid ancestors. They call this the cradle of humankind, and you'll see that. There's an amazing museum there now. Before heading on to Ngorongoro Crater for a night on the crater rim at our Ngorongoro Nyumba camp, and then finishing at Gibbs Farm for your luxury soft finish. At the end, you'll drive back to Arusha to meet your return flight home. And of course, if you want to come in early or if you want to stay late, no worries. We'll help you out with those services. So as I mentioned, Delta KLM is generally the standard as it relates to traveling from the U.S. to Tanzania into Kilimanjaro Airport. So if you leave on the 25th of February, you'll cross the pond on a red-eye flight to Amsterdam, arriving the following morning on the 26th, and then connect again from Amsterdam down to Kilimanjaro Airport, usually arriving around 8 to 8:30 p.m. We'll be there to meet you. The Thomson guide and vehicle will be sitting there with a Iowa State alumni sign, so you'll be able to find him very easily. And then it's a short 40-minute drive to River Trees Country Inn. This is a beautiful lodge on the outskirts of town. It's an old German coffee plantation that's been converted into a wonderful bed and breakfast. There's just an amazing environment there. They do have birds, monkeys on the property as well. You have views to Mount Meru, which is nearly 15,000 feet tall. And then on a clear day, you could see Kilimanjaro. For those of you who do come in a day early, and we recommend that if you can, you'll get to enjoy the property for a day and just relax. It's the perfect place to unwind and catch up on jet lag before continuing on. From there, as I mentioned, you'll fly out to the Eastern Serengeti Private Nature Refuge. So this is 10,000 acres of private land that Thomson holds in partnership with the local Maasai community. Because it's located outside of a national park jurisdiction, you can do a number of things here that you cannot do inside of a national park, namely bushwalks to see wildlife on foot. This is the best way to get up in close proximity with hoofed animals like zebra, wildebeest, impala, etc. You'll learn how to identify footprints. You'll be able to examine some of the smaller flora and fauna that make up the base of the ecosystem. And it's just a wonderful way to enjoy the bush in the early mornings or the late afternoons. The refuge is staffed by this man here, Daniel Yamat, who is a Maasai man who was educated here in the United States as a veterinarian, and he runs the entire program at Anashiva at this refuge. He's been there since the beginning, and he knows it better than anybody. And so this is an example of a fireside chat or a late afternoon chat to talk about conservation topics, or to talk about the challenges or the successes that they've gone through over the past 15 years or so. As part of our cultural programming at the refuge, we work with a large group of Maasai. This group here is called Enaboishu. These are the Maasai warriors, a very proud group of gentlemen who will welcome you at camp on one of the evenings there. And they'll also be joined by the Enjapai Women's Collective. This is a group of women who use a number of business initiatives, namely beaded jewelry workshops, leather tanning for leather goods, beekeeping for honey, and a number of other things to earn revenue for their village, but primarily so they can send their girls to school, primary and secondary school. And this is an attempt really to kind of hold off on the early marriages that happen in traditional Maasai culture. So these are really amazing women. I think that it'll be really inspiring to meet them and to hear their stories, and I'm sure they'll be very curious to learn about you as well. As I mentioned, the schools in the area, there are about 5 schools around the refuge. Thomson is connected to all of them. This is the primary school in the area called Sukenya Primary School. I mentioned the night drives. Well, at this refuge, when you head out after dark by spotlight, you have a chance of seeing nocturnal wildlife primarily. In this case, this is an aardvark. They're very rarely spotted. As a matter of fact, most guides have never seen one. But we have resident aardvark on the property, and there's a relatively good chance that you'll see them, as well as other animals like bat-eared fox or spring hare, African porcupine. If you're lucky, you could see African hunting dogs or wild dogs, maybe even a leopard. We'll see. And then, as I mentioned, the stargazing in this area is phenomenal. We had a NASA engineer come to the refuge to measure both light and sound readings, and he determined that this is by far the darkest and quietest area he's ever been, and he's been to Antarctica. So put that in perspective. This is just an amazing an amazing place to observe the southern sky and all of the wonderful constellations. From the Eastern Serengeti Private Nature Refuge, you'll drive by vehicle with your guides into Serengeti National Park. Serengeti National Park is about 5,000 square miles, which is about the size of Connecticut, without a single fence. It's home to the largest population of hoofed animals on the planet. You have the great wildebeest migration, as well as zebra, gazelle, and a number of other antelope. You also have about 3,000 lion. To put that in perspective, there are more lion in the Serengeti itself than in the entire country of Kenya, or South Africa, or Botswana. It's actually not even that close. And so what an amazing place to see both hoofed animals as well as big cats. There are also large groups of elephant, Cape buffalo, and other large mammals. I mentioned the lion just a second ago. This is my photo that I took in 2019, a group of sisters from a pride in the Central Serengeti. While leopard are by nature very elusive, they are ambush predators, there is a section in the Central Serengeti that you can have very, very reliable leopard sightings. We call it Leopard Alley. It's along the Serenera River. And you might spend a day or half a day going out in search of cheetah. Cheetah, they're not a big cat. The big cats are lion, leopard. You have tiger elsewhere in Asia. But cheetah, they are a smaller cat, and they tend to hang out in areas away from other large predators, primarily because they struggle to protect their kill. And so they will hang out in areas where they have less competition and are able to sit on a kill a bit longer and feed their cubs, etc. I mentioned the large herds of elephant. Seeing a herd of 20 to 40 to 60 is relatively common in the Serengeti. If you see 100 or more, that's a really, really big herd, so fingers crossed. And as I mentioned, the Great Migration pours through the Serengeti. It spends almost the entire year in Serengeti National Park, and in February they'll be dropping their calves. So this is calving season at the time of this safari. Those who would like to, available to them is an optional Serengeti balloon safari for an additional fee. We're happy to schedule that for you. The balloon flight starts right at dawn as you skirt across the southern Serengeti plains and finishes with a beautiful bush breakfast and a champagne toast as well. From Serengeti, you'll head on through Ngorongoro Conservation Area. As I mentioned, Olduvai Gorge is your first stop. This location sits at the base of Ngorongoro in the extreme southern Serengeti Plains, and this is where the Leakey family discovered Zinjanthropus man, otherwise known as Nutcracker man, and Australopithecus boise. This is another proto-hominid, and so truly this is the cradle of humankind. I've had guests say to me, Andrew, I wonder why I feel so at home on safari with you. And the reason is, this is home. This is where we learned or evolved to walk on our 2 legs as bipeds to stare out across the horizon, both in search of prey, but also in search of oncoming threat, predation, or other groups of hominids. So, so it's no surprise that we feel at home on these plains. Ngorongoro Crater is the world's largest unbroken volcanic caldera. It is 120 square miles with a crater rim that's 10 miles wide from rim to rim. On the floor of Ngorongoro Crater, you have each of the big five. You have the densest concentration of large mammals on the planet. And the reason for this is that the crater floor holds each of the primary ecosystems or habitats that you'll see in the Serengeti. You have everything from forest to swamp to savanna. You have a large soda lake in the middle of the crater, as you can see here. And then the crater rim also holds a number of kind of montane species as well. So a lot going on in the crater. Definitely going to see hippopotamus on the crater floor. There's a large hippo pool there. You can sometimes see 50 to 100, maybe even 200 hippos in that pool. Lake Magadi, which is the soda lake in the center of the crater, is also home to a large population of lesser flamingo. Ngorongoro Crater remains to be the best spot to see black rhinoceros in the wild. They are critically endangered. There's only a few dozen of them left in northern Tanzania, and almost all of them live in the crater. You could see them in the Serengeti as well. That would be a really big treat, so fingers crossed. Our camp on Ngorongoro Crater, standing in juxtaposition from our Serengeti camps, which are set out on the savanna with expansive views out across the plains, well, our Ngorongoro Nyumba is set on the crater rim in an umbrella acacia forest, and it's just very lush and green with tons of bird life and even primates. Sometimes we have zebra come up the crater rim and into camp to visit. So just a wonderful wilderness environment to enjoy your night on the crater rim. And then finishing at the end at the award-winning Gibbs Farm. Gibbs Farm goes back to the early 1900s. Was first a German farm taken over by a British woman, Margaret Gibbs, and then in the early 2000s purchased by a safari operation who's really kind of put a lot of money and time and effort into bringing Gibbs Farm to the 21st century in terms of amenities and all those nice touches. The first thing about Gibbs that's amazing outside of the luxury is that about 95% of the food that comes from Gibbs Farm comes directly from the farm. So it truly is farm to fork cuisine. If you'd like to go out and spend time with the staff at Gibbs Farm, you can harvest vegetables, you can harvest herbs, learn about coffee production. Speaking of which, Gibbs Farm coffee is legendary in East Africa. You can pick the coffee berries, you can roast them, and enjoy the freshest pot of coffee pretty much anywhere at Gibbs Farm. Gibbs Farm's Farm Fresh lunch is legendary as well. As you can see here, the spread is just unimaginable in terms of the array of options, and the cooks and the head chef at Gibbs Farm are really the top of their game. Now at Gibbs Farm, the accommodations, they're based around I would say something like a Nantucket style cottage, but inside you'll notice that all the furniture was handmade on the property, and in this case you can see the desk and chairs, the crate here was all manufactured using trees that fell in the forest behind the property, and so handcrafted on the property. Every piece of art that you see at Gibbs Farm was also crafted on the property via their Artists in Residence program. So you can feel free to visit with these artists and learn their story and maybe support them by purchasing their art. Finally, at the end of your safari, you'll head back to Arusha, to Kilimanjaro Airport. You'll have a nice farewell lunch, maybe some time for shopping before saying goodbye to your guides, and then boarding the return flight on Delta KLM back to Amsterdam and then home from there. Now, the fine print for the safari. We're looking at a land-only safari rate of $83.90 plus the $500 Tanzania value-added tax, and that's per person in double occupancy. The single accommodations is only $800, so singles are definitely welcome. If you're open to sharing, and there is a same-sex traveler who's also willing to share, we can look into room shares as well. Totally up to you. This rate includes all the park fees, pretty much all the meals, activities, and transportation while you're on safari. In terms of things that are not included, the international airfare, which generally ranges from $1,500 to $1,800 at this time of year in coach. Business class is more expensive. Feel free to give us a call and we can point you in the right direction. The gratuities for your guides and camp staff. Laundry is inexpensive. Bar beverages are inexpensive. We will cover the first night of house beer and wine at the welcome dinner and also the farewell dinner at Gibbs Farm on your last night. Travel insurance we recommend is also not included in this price. So who wants to go to Tanzania with the Traveling Cyclones and Thomson Safaris? We'd love to have you. I'm sure if you are thinking of going on safari to Tanzania, that this is the option that would be best for you. But feel free to give a call. I'm happy to answer any questions. I've been here with Thomson since 2007. It is my passion, and I've seen everything that you're about to see in February 2023. If you'd like to book or inquire, please give Laney at the Traveling Cyclones a call at 515-294-5775, and the booking process is very easy. Thank you so much.